Are we good to go? Okay. You got it. That's right. Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, still with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its close, ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay in all around I see. Oh, thou who changes not, abide with me. I fear no foe, with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight, and tears no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where, grave, thy victory? I triumph still if thou abide with me.
Bishop Evans of New Braunfels, Texas. Matthew J. Tomkowitz of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Ross A. Reynolds of Leominster, Massachusetts. James W. Speedy of Cambridge, Ohio. Jacob M. Moore of Catlettsburg, Kentucky. Jonathan E. Gerke of Lawrenceville, Georgia. Zachary W. Riffle of Kingswood, West Virginia. Maxton Soviak of Berlin Heights, Ohio. Brian Naus of Coreytown, Tennessee. Darren Hoover of Salt Lake City, Utah. Johanna Rosario Pichardo of Lawrence, Massachusetts. Nicole Gee of Indio, California. Dagan Page of Omaha, Nebraska. Humberto Sanchez of Logansport, Indiana. David Espinoza of Rio Bravo, Texas. Jared Schmitz of St. Charles, Missouri. Riley McCollum of Jackson, Wyoming. Dylan Marola of Rancho Cucamonga, California. Kareem Nikui of Norco, California. James Willis of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Joshua Robinson of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And Casey Hart of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. These are the people who died in the past year while serving in the US military. So they are the newest ones we honor tomorrow on Memorial Day. And there are so many others that we hold in our hearts today too, others that we mourn. The people killed in wars in Ukraine, in Burma, in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. The people killed with guns in Buffalo, Laguna Woods, Uvalde, and in large numbers, and those killed just a few at a time in Kalamazoo and in every other community in our country. And our beloved dead, those that we knew and loved and lost this year. This pain, this grief, if we face it, if we don't turn away from it, is almost too much to bear. And it is this world, our world, the country that we live in. We can't pretend it is otherwise, no matter how much we might wish it to be so. I wish I had the words today, the words of comfort, the words that inspire, the words that somehow fix the heartbreak of all of this loss, so much of it needless and senseless. I don't have that, but I can remind you that you are not alone in your despair, in your distress, in your grief, in your anger, in your weeping and wailing. And that is meager comfort, and it is something. And here we tell each other the truth, even when it isn't the warm and fuzzy truth that we wish it was, even when the truth breaks our hearts. So come on this weekend of Memorial Day, let us remember together. Come, let us worship together.
Whether you are in person or on Zoom, welcome to this opportunity to be together in community, which can be a time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenges. People's United Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. My name is Becky Moffett-Moore. I'm from the Sunday Services Committee. I would like to extend a welcome to everyone gathered here and thank you for being with us this morning. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Now let us move into worship, willing to be authentic with each other, honest within ourselves, and opening to connections in all forms.
And as we begin, I have so many announcements, so settle in. The first is that voting is underway for our congregational meeting. Your votes are due a week from tomorrow. So if you are a member of People's Church, I encourage you to vote. We know that some people have had trouble receiving ballots. Maybe we had the wrong email, maybe it went to a spam folder. If that is the story for you, please be in touch with Melissa Emrich in our church office or in the AV booth at this exact moment, and she will help you get it sorted. We need more people on our AV team. So if you are someone who attends worship occasionally in person and is not terrified of computers, I invite you to consider it. We currently have 3 people who know how to make our multi-platform magic happen. And especially as we move into the summer, that is not a sustainable number of people. So we need a few more people to know how to do that. So especially, I'm worried that there'll be a Sunday this summer when our 3 people are all away and we can't have our Zoom people be with us. So even if that isn't your favorite role to imagine yourself in, I invite you to consider it. It's not as hard as you might think. Reed has made amazing directions that even I can follow. So, and this is not my strength. And there are a number of activities and events and special services in the coming weeks that I want to make sure you know about. So next Sunday is our milestones service. We'll be celebrating our youth who are entering young adulthood, which is always one of the best Sundays of the year. We will also have a child dedication ritual, which is how we welcome the littlest members of our community. And we haven't done that in about 2.5 years. And we've had some babies join our community since then. So it's going to be a joy. And the service itself will include a collage of voices of people reflecting on what they have learned in the past year. So if you have something to add that you have learned or learned about or discovered in the past year, please send it my way. When we did this before, the reflections range from children who learned how to ride a bike, which was quite common as the pandemic began, and to more philosophical musings and discoveries. So I would love to have your voice as part of that. Also, after church next Sunday, there's a few things to know about. After church, we will have a cookies and punch reception celebrating all of our wonderful religious education volunteers. Everyone is invited to celebrate all of the ways they have served our community and our children this year. And it also will be the first session of our new Inquirers series class. So this is a class that is designed for newcomers, but open to everyone, that will, over the course of 9 sessions, which will happen every other week for the whole summer, introduce you to 9 different areas of People's Church and Unitarian Universalism. So that's going to gather, if the weather is good, outside behind the church building on under the manta ray tent. And if you want to come, please let me know so we can make sure we have enough food to feed you. We'll do a light lunch, enough to keep people from getting angry before the class ends at 1:30 is our goal. And the first session is a Q&A with the minister. So broad and general, and in the coming weeks, we'll have sessions on the religious education program, on what it means to be a member, a tour of the building and grounds, and all the different things you might need to know as you make your way in. Okay, 2 weeks from today is the final service of the church program year. We have services in the summer, but they're smaller and we don't put on quite the same production value. And that's also our flower ritual. So I invite you to bring a flower or 2 to share. And that sharing and the creation of the beautiful bouquet is a metaphor for our community. We'll also be celebrating the payoff of our capital debt. Church is debt-free, which was announced last Sunday. And again, if the weather is on our side, we will have a potluck outside on the church grounds following the service. I have missed all the food that you all make, so I am excited. And if coming in to church in person is still not the right choice for you, we will have a walk-through, bike-through, drive-through flower service moment, flower ritual on Saturday morning on the 11th. So come to that if that's the way that makes sense for you to participate, or you're otherwise engaged on Sunday morning. That is everything. All of this is in your emails and newsletters and things, but I just know sometimes hearing it helps it get in our brains faster than reading it, or just hearing it over and over again maybe will mean it sticks. So now I invite you into whatever posture helps you sing your best for our beginning song.
All righty. Just gotta get my. How are we doing this morning? Here we go. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot 1 foot, yep, in front of the other one. 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, and lead with. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Let's speed this up a little bit. You gotta put 1 foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put 1 foot in front of the other and lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. Let's pick it up a little bit. You gotta put 1 foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put 1 foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot in front of the other one. 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, and lead with love. I know you're scared. And I'm scared too. But here I am, right next to you. Last time through. You gotta put 1 foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put 1 foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot in front of the other one. 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, and lead with love. Thank you.
If you are lighting a chalice at home, you are encouraged to type in the chat box. A chalice is lit in your neighborhood, your city, your street, your city. Words from Christian Robinson. We gather this hour as a people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of life we share together.
I invite you to rise again in body or spirit. The number is 159 in your hymnal. 159. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer
We have 18 Zoom connections with us this morning, and we have chalices lit in addition to this one at People's Church. We have several in Parkview Hills, one in Portage, and one in Texas Township. Our story for this morning is an old Jewish story. There was a king named King Solomon, who was a wise and thoughtful and good king. And King Solomon had a servant man named Benaiah, who was also wise and hardworking and good. And Benaiah was very proud of himself, that he had done everything that King Solomon had ever asked of him. And he was maybe a little too proud of that, so he would brag on the other workers who worked for King Solomon, saying, "Have you done every single thing that the king has asked you to do?" And of course, they would say no, because they hadn't done every single thing. Sometimes they didn't get something done in time. And Benaiah would then say, "Well, I have done everything, because I am the best worker in all of the kingdom." And during one of these bragging sessions, King Solomon overheard and said, "I'm going to teach that man a lesson." And so he called Benaiah to him and said, "Benaiah, I would like you to find me a ring to wear at the festival in 3 months. This is not just any ring. It has a special power. When happy people look at this ring, they will feel sad. And when sad people look at this ring, they will feel happy." And Benaiah said, "Well, King, I have never disappointed you before, so I will, of course, find that ring for you." And the very next morning, Benaiah set off in his quest. First, he just went to the center of the city, where the jewelers were, and started asking. And no one had heard of this ring that would make a sad person happy and a happy person sad, just from looking at it. And so he asked around there and had no luck. So he went to the north. No one had heard of the ring. He went to the south. No one had heard of such a ring. He went to the east and to the west and everywhere he could think to go. And no one had heard of this magic ring or this special ring that would make a sad person happy and a happy person sad. And the months passed. And before too long, it was the night before the festival. And Benaiah was so worried that he would not find this ring that he could not sleep. And so he went out just wandering the streets of the city looking for the ring. And that morning, 2 people went out and set a little spread of items to sell. There were rings, there were cups, there was some other jewelry on the side of the road, a young man and an old woman. And Benaiah saw them setting up things and said, "Oh, maybe it's these people. Maybe this is finally, they will know something." And so he walks up to them and says, "Good people, do you know of a ring that will make sad people happy and happy people sad just from looking at it?" And the young man says, "Oh, that doesn't sound like a real thing. I don't think that ring exists." And Benaiah walked on. But then the old woman called out and said, "I think I can help you. I think we can make that ring." And so she took one of the rings she had and just carved something into the front of it and handed it to him. And he said, "Oh," Benaiah knew he had the special ring, the magic ring that King Solomon had been searching for. Do any of you have any idea what it might say? What are the words that would make a sad person happy and a happy person sad? Anybody want to yell anything out or put something in the chat box? It could be worse, an option. Any other guesses? This too shall pass. That is the answer I was looking for. Gold stars back there. This too shall pass. And so Benaiah has the ring that has "this too shall pass," the reminder that nothing that we feel is forever, that things will change, that if we are sad, we will not be sad forever. If we are happy, we will not be happy forever. It will pass. And meanwhile, King Solomon had seen how hard Benaiah had been working for this ring that King Solomon thought would not exist. And he was starting to feel pretty bad about it. So he calls Benaiah to him, ready to apologize. But Benaiah walks in with this great big smile and says, "King Solomon, I have found the ring that you're looking for." And he shows him the ring. And King Solomon slides it right on and wore it to the festival and wore it always. And as he was this good and wise king, anytime that someone was with him who was feeling sad, he could show them the ring and give them a little bit of comfort, the reminder that they will not feel sad forever. And he usually did not show it to the happy people, because he was wise enough to know that when you're feeling happy, you should hold on to that for as long as you can. And that is our story for today. People's people are generous people in so many ways. With the music they share, your financial generosity. And today I want to highlight something that I hadn't thought about, that is one of our gifts to the wider world, and that is our parking lot. Did you know that probably dozens of people have learned how to drive in our own parking lot? I know that our church folks have been using the parking lot over the last several years to help refugees and immigrants learn to drive, because it's a really good place to practice, to learn all the things you need to know, because it's usually pretty empty, as long as it's not a Sunday morning. So you can set up some cones and practice your parallel parking. And I also learned just a few weeks ago that a number of our neighbors use the parking lot. So generations of Oshtemo residents have learned to drive, have learned to ride their bikes, have done all kinds of things, I'm sure some of them not quite as wholesome, in our parking lot. So what a gift we have that we didn't even know, but our neighbors appreciate our nice, mostly empty parking lot for all of the driving and biking that they're able to practice out here, because Oshtemo doesn't have a lot of spaces like that. There's not a lot of park space for that, and we have a parking lot that's mostly empty. So this is where I invite you to continue to be the generous people that you are. The offering will now be received.
Please join with me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. From the countless gifts we each have been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share in the works of love, which none of us can accomplish alone.
Memorial Day prayer. Spirit of life, whom we have called by many names, in thanksgiving and in anguish. Bless the poets and those who mourn. Send peace for the soldiers who did not make the wars, but whose lives were consumed by them. Let strong trees grow above graves far from home. Breathe through the arms of their branches. The earth will swallow your tears while the dead sing, no more, never again, remember me. For the wounded ones and those who received them back, let there be someone ready when the memories come, when the scars pull and the buried metal moves, and forgiveness for those of us who are not there, for our ignorance. And in us, veterans in a forest of 1,000 fallen promises, let new leaves of protest grow on our stumps. Give us courage to answer the cry of humanity's pain, and with our bare hands, out of full hearts, with all of our intelligence, let us create peace.
The first reading this morning comes from The Cure for Sorrow by Jan Richardson. Is there a cure for sorrow? At its deepest, grief can make it difficult to believe that we will ever be whole again, that we will ever know joy again, or that hope will ever visit us again. It can leave us believing we will feel this way forever. Yet grief holds strange graces that make it possible to enter into the wholeness that God continually desires for us, even as we continue to live with the pain of our loss. If there is any cure for sorrow, the cure will not look like we expect. We often think of a cure as a return to a condition we have once known, that it repairs us in a way that leaves us recognizable to ourselves and others. The reality of grief is that the breakage it brings will not allow us to be put back together in the same way. our life will never look like it did before sorrow arrived. Yet there is a healing that comes in grieving, a redemption that does something other than restore us to the lives we once knew. This healing comes, somewhat paradoxically, in allowing ourselves to give exquisite attention to our grief, to feel it in its terrible fullness instead of ignoring it, to let it speak instead of silencing it, and to allow it to show us a way that we could not find on our own. Part of the strange mystery of grief is that it holds its own cure. We grieve because we have lost a beloved connection to another person or to a way of being in this world. As we tend the connections that remain, our connection to others, including our beloved dead, our connection to God, even when we feel fury at God for allowing such loss, and to our connection to the layers of our own hearts, a wholeness steals, and that has the ability to make a home in us even when we still feel broken. It can sometimes seem our grief is that all that connects us to what we have lost. This gives it a perilous potency that can threaten the life that seeks to unfold in us. A life capable of holding both love and sorrow. If we allow grief to do its work, the love that lives within it becomes ever more clear and present to us. In time, the love has a way of overtaking the grief so that our loving, rather than our grieving, becomes our primary bond to what we have lost. It is finally this love that holds our cure. It is this love that is our cure. In the deepest pain that rends us, in the keenest solace that visits us, in the hope that does not release its hold on us, love lives, bearing itself toward us as sorrow's most lasting cure.
Spell for Grief or Letting Go by Adrienne Marie Brown. Adequate tears twisting up directly from the heart and wrung out across the vocal cords until only a gasp remains. At least an hour a day spent staring at the truth in numb silence. A teacup of whiskey held with both hands, held still under the whispers of permissions from friends who can see right through okay and fine. An absence of theory. Flight as necessary. Poetry, your own and others, on precipice, abandonment, nature, and death. Courage to say what has happened, however strangling the words are, and space to not say a word. A brief dance with sugar to honor the legacies of coping that got you this far. Sentences spoken with total pragmatism that provide clear guidance of some direction to move in, full of the tender care and balance of choice and not having to choose. Screaming why and or expressing fury at the stupid, unfair game of it all. This may include hours and hours, even lifetimes of lost faith. Laughter, undeniable and unpretended. A walk in the world, all that gravity with breath and heartbeat in your ears. Fire, for all that can be written. Moonlight, the more full, the more nourishing. stories, ideally of coincidence and heartache and the sweetest tiny moments. Time, more time, and then more time. Enough time to remember every moment you had with that one now taken from you, and to forget to think of it every moment. And just a glimpse of tomorrow, either in the face of an innocent or the realization of a dream. This is a non-linear spell. Cast it inside your heart, cast it between yourself and any devil, cast it to the parts of yourself still living. Remember, you are water. Of course you leave salt trails. Of course you are crying. Flow. P.S. If there happens to be a multitude of griefs upon you, individual and collective, or fast and slow, or small and large, add equal parts of these considerations. That the broken heart can cover more territory. That perhaps love can only be as large as grief demands. That grief is the growing up of the heart that bursts boundaries like an old skin or a finished life. That grief is gratitude. That water seeks scale, that even your tears seek the recognition of community. That the heart is at the front line and the fight is to feel in a world of distraction. That your grief is a worthwhile use of your time. That your body will feel only as much as it is able to. That the ones you grieve might be grieving you. That the sacred comes from the limitations, and that you are excellent at loving.
The lyrics for our next song can be found in your order of service. Is Comfort Me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me. Sing with me. Sing with me. Sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me. Sing with me. Sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me, oh my soul. and comfort me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Have you made art about it yet? Have you made art about it yet? The rabbi asked us through the Zoom screen. We were gathered, a few dozen of us from points across the country, to make art about it, about the pandemic and all the losses and changes and griefs and gratitudes that these past several years had brought. And I hadn't made any art about it yet. I hadn't set aside much time to feel anything about it yet. I was skeptical of myself as an artist, but I gathered some materials from my children's art supplies and the RE supply room here at the church and joined this class with the Jewish Studio Project. The Jewish Studio Project combines the close study of texts, which is part of the Jewish tradition, with some of the practices of art therapy. We read scripture and poems, talked about them in a small group, and then made art about it. Made art just for ourselves. And when you're all making your own art on Zoom, it's very easy to not let anybody see whatever you've created. The first day we read the Adrienne Marie Brown poem that I just read to you. It was a poem I knew, but like any piece of writing that is worthwhile, it revealed more with each listening. The line, "Remember you are water, of course you leave salt trails," landed in a new way for me. So when it was time to make art, I started dripping watercolor paint down the paper I had clipped to my 4-year-old's tiny easel and watching it run down the paper, slowly, slowly. And as I watched that paint drip, something unlocked within me. Water welled in my eyes and came down my cheeks as well. I wept for all of the big and tiny losses of our pandemic season. The deaths, the canceled plans, the relationships that withered from lack of attention, the fatigue for making so many impossible decisions, the pivoting so many times I was pirouetting, the trying to protect my children and others I love when I have so little control over anything, the anger, the intense anger at our collective systemic failure that has led to so many unnecessary deaths, and on and on. I know you all have lists like this too, maybe with some of the details changed, but we all have lists of losses. And as I reflected on the tears on the page and on my face, and I sat with them, I realized this was the first time in a long time that I had let myself just feel it. For so much of the pandemic, I've kept myself distant from my own losses and griefs because I just need to function, and with the internal monologue that minimizes my own experience. Maybe you do this too. Well, I know a few of the million people who have died of COVID in this country. None have been in my closest circles. And while it was hard to have school and daycare shut down, my spouse and I, through a combination of layoffs, vacation time, and my sabbatical, and working really wild schedules, were able to make it work. And we did not often have to both work and oversee remote kindergarten simultaneously. And when COVID found my family, I could preach from my attic and take paid sick time. And so the story that I told myself about how it wasn't as bad as it could have been was true, but it also doesn't mean that it hasn't been really, really bad. And living with that is hard. And I found myself kind of numbing everything just to get through. And when you do that, when you don't feel your feelings, you get cut off from the good ones too. Joy becomes a distant country. And so they say that every minister preaches the sermon they need to hear. So maybe this is just for me, but I've seen a couple of nods. So maybe this works for you too. The sermon I need to hear about grief today, that I probably need to keep hearing, that I have given to others, to you, is the invitation to feel the feelings. Don't judge them or block them or say, oh, someone else has it worse, so I shouldn't be present with my own stuff. I know this in my head. I've preached it before. I've told it to you in one-on-one meetings when you're grieving. And yet, it's hard to live. It's hard to live. It's hard to feel the feelings when some small person is screaming for dinner or your own stomach is screaming for dinner and you have to just keep going. It's hard. But the truth is, when we deny, when we minimize, when we numb, when we turn away from the grief and the loss, we cannot get to healing and wholeness. We get stuck. As Jan Richardson writes in the afterword of The Cure for Sorrow, which Becky read, which is a beautiful book of poems she wrote after her spouse died unexpectedly. She writes, the healing comes somewhat paradoxically in allowing ourselves to give exquisite attention to our grief, to feel it in its terrible fullness instead of ignoring it, to let it speak instead of silencing it, and to allow it to show us a way that we could not find on our own. So in that art workshop, I found a way to let my grief speak or begin to speak, to let the water drip down the page and tears run down my face. And then more shifted internally. Feeling the grief helped me move through it and create something new. In each day of the workshop, we read different texts and made different art, sometimes returning to the same piece and expanding on it. On the last day, I returned to the piece that was just paint drips and realized it needed something new. So I cut alongside of the drips and wove in strips of magazine paper and washi tape and yarn, choosing things that said words like imagine or in memoriam and beauty or more love, more tacos. And here's what I created. This is my masterpiece. Oh, thank you all. It's kind of a mess. We wouldn't put it on the art wall anytime soon, and that's okay. We don't create art just for display. We create for what the creating does for us, because it showed me something. And that act of weaving all of that together felt like the right metaphor for this moment, not just for me, but for us collectively. Weaving bits and pieces together, taking what is broken to find a new wholeness that isn't a return, but is a moving forward into something new. Here's Jan Richardson again. As we tend the connections that remain, our connection to others, including our beloved dead, our connection to God, even when we feel fury at God for allowing such loss, and to the connections to the layers of our own hearts, a wholeness steals in that has the ability to make a home in us, even when we still feel broken. a wholeness and a brokenness together feels like the image for this moment, maybe for always. The next step in my story of art, you can see on the wall right over there. Melissa, please pan. There we go. She had the camera all ready to go for our Zoomers. The weavings that many of us made together during our stewardship season a few months ago. So the weaving thing that I stumbled into felt vital and true, but I didn't know what to do next with it. So I contacted Gay Walker and Corey Zahn, an art therapist and a weaver among us. We have all of the skills we need right here to see what might be possible. And they refined my, I think we should maybe weave something into something that is beautiful and rich in metaphor. And now hang on our walls, and they led our children in a weaving class just for them. So in those collective weavings, there is wire and ribbon and yarn, and even a shoe worked in there somehow. And the beauty is the alchemy that can happen when we don't shy away from grief, when we look to holy writing, when we look within, when we turn to our communities with our ideas not fully formed perhaps, but knowing that people among us have the talents to get us where we need to go. And when we are exceedingly lucky, because there's part of me that hates the tidiness of this story. If I saw it in a book, I would not add it to my sermon, but because I've lived it, because feel your feelings, weep, talk, shifts and unlocks and becomes beautiful, feels too trite, but it is also so true. Grief is rarely tidy, but it has such potential for transformation. The only way out is through. Give exquisite attention to your grief, as Jan Richardson instructs. Make art about it, or write about it, or talk about it. Try things that feel maybe a little bit uncomfortable, and something might shift. Of course, the scale of grief is different. My general pandemic grief and anger is on a different scale than the grief of the families of the people whose names we lifted up earlier. But even the most profound grief has the same potential for transformation, for lives to be put back together in a new wholeness, a new way, eventually. Jan Richardson again says, it is finally love that holds our cure. It is love that is our cure. In the deepest pain that rends us, in the keenest solace that visits us, it is the hope that does not release its hold on us. Love lives, bearing itself towards us as sorrow's most lasting cure. May it be so. May we make it so. And amen. And now I want to invite you into a ritual for grief. We will light some candles for the loss and the grief. And I invite those of you who are here with us in person who wish to come forward and light a candle or many for the loss, grief, sadness, sorrow, anger, rage, all of that stuff that you are holding today. If you want to speak it aloud into the space, you're welcome to. We're not going to use the microphone. We'll just have a murmuring. And if you're on Zoom and have a candle, I invite you to light it. I will light several candles as well for those folks who are joining us from away. If you want to share grief or loss in the chat box, you're welcome to. And when you are not lighting a candle, either in person or on Zoom, I invite you to just take some smooth breaths and witness all it is that we are holding in our community today. those candles, all of them crowded together, flickering under the ceiling fans. Notice them. I invite you to keep that image when you feel alone in grief and loss. Remember this, the candles that are all flickering together in this community today. And now I invite you again into the posture that helps you sing your best for our closing song.
It is number 324 in your gray hymnal. Where my free spirit onward leads, well, there shall be my way. By my own light illumined, I've journeyed night and day. My age a time-worn cloak I wear, as once I wore my youth. I celebrate life's mystery. I celebrate death's truth. My family is not confined to mother, mate, and child, but it includes all creatures, be they tame or be they wild. My family upon this earth includes all living things, on land or in the ocean deep, or borne aloft on wings. The ever-spinning universe, well, there shall be my home. I sing and spin within it, as through this life I roam. Eternity is hard to ken, and harder still is this. A human life, when truly seen, is briefer than a kiss.
My therapist this week told me when I came in and just named my overwhelm with all the pain in the world, she said, how about you feel your feelings for like 10 minutes? Just set an alarm and then you can stop and go do something else. And so that is my optional homework for you all today, if you choose to accept it. Set a timer, feel some feelings, maybe make some art about it, and trust that leaning into that will help you find some new wholeness, strength, insight, and wisdom. And then come back and tell us about it. Let us go in peace and go in love.